the way that he was depicted was a little bit more. It's all color because you don't know what's true and what's not. There's more noise, maybe.
Or hang on. Oppenheimer's color. Leslie is black and white.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have no idea what to say. Edit that out. delete.
Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
Was that a strategic sip that you just planned out right now? Like, did you do that knowing that you were going to have a dramatic pause and then say your name?
I didn't think about it beforehand, and as I grabbed my water jug, I was like, "This could get interesting."
This is what professionalism looks like in the business, folks. Look at you.
Figured it out. I made it work.
Look at you. What was that even? What was that?
It's just water. Just water.
This is just water? Okay.
I just got
all right.
stickers
We're
on
not.
my water.
We're not juicing.
I have. We're not sponsored by these guys yet, but hopefully we will be. It's Element. It's electrolytes that are sugar free and they're delicious, and I put them in my water a lot.
And it's got everything that plants need.
Yeah, sure. And humans, because we're severely low on electrolytes mostly daily. So
yes, mostly. Anyway, today we are talking about the explosive movie that came into cinema this summer. We're talking about Oppenheimer, the 12th film in Nolan's filmography, Christopher Nolan's filmography, a director that many of which are big fans of. Among those big fans are Nick and I. Nick, why do you like Christopher Nolan?
Oh man, he's the way that he tells the story is it's probably one of my favorite. He's definitely one of my favorite directors. I jump to see anything that he does. He's just so unique how he tells the stories with his films, and yeah, like the entertainment and inspiring level from his films is just like incredible. Yeah.
The man knows how to tell a story. And I have, I think for me, my first movie was Memento from him. And ever since then, I've kind of marveled at what he's been able to craft. For me, I think that was the first time I had watched a film and I had seen somebody really push the limits as to what you can do on screen in just telling a story, right? Just a really creative master of his craft. And I'm really happy that we continue to see him flourish, and with a movie like this, where it really seems like he's just burning it on all cylinders. Yeah. You and I have. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, from start to finish, it was like just completely enthralling. Like 3 hours was nothing. Like, totally just grabs you from the get go. Yeah.
We'll get into that because I do want to talk about the timing of this movie. I'm pretty sure that this is Nolan's longest film, and there are some comments about that as far as whether or not that affected your experience of this movie. But we'll get into that later. So I forget. Do we do? Oh my God, we do. Oh my God, we do.
I think it's your turn.
No, I just realized it's my turn.
Oh, this is amazing.
Did you see it? Did you see it on my face?
I saw your face when you realized that it was your turn to do it. Is it 15 seconds? It's 15 seconds. Yeah, we had this problem a couple episodes ago. I screwed you. I screwed you once, but it's 15 seconds.
Okay. Oh my God, I didn't mentally prepare for this at all.
So,
I don't care.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe has 15 seconds to give us a full summary of this film, in which afterwards I will grade him on A through F scale. Joe, I'm going to count down, and you're just going to go, and you've got 15 seconds to tell us about Oppenheimer. You ready? You're not ready, but you're going to be.
No, I'm ready. I'm just going to wing this. Let's go.
3, 2, 1, action.
Robert J. Oppenheimer is a nuclear physicist who discovers that there might be a way to take atomic energy and build a bomb. He's going to do it to help end the war, but he doesn't realize, or does realize and fear, that there are social reactions that cannot be stopped
Time.
for the rest of eternity until everything's done.
Time.
How do you explain atomic energy in 15 seconds?
Well, Joe, if you were a physicist, you would know that time works differently than most.
Don't you pull Einstein on me. Neither one of us is qualified to quote Einstein.
In another form of life, you did actually completely summarize this in 15 seconds. However, that is not this life, sir. On this life, I mean, I'm going to give you a C-.
I'll take it.
Give you a C-.
I'll take it. That was
generous.
That was kind of horrifying.
It's generous because, I mean, you gave us like a decent, like what is Oppenheimer doing, which we all already knew, but I'm still giving you a C- because it was a 3-hour movie, and I feel like the first half is probably what your synopsis was. So you got a C-, cutting you some slack on this Sunday evening.
I touched the ending. The ending. There are chain reactions that we cannot stop.
Yeah.
I don't think I said it quite that coherently, though.
No.
And
it might have been a second after your time was up, but we'll refer to the tape for that later.
15 seconds is so fast.
It's very fast. Like I said start, and you literally took a second to start speaking. Like I watched it happen. I was like, this guy's already screwed.
Wait, seriously? I thought I was like that. Maybe there was something weird with our timing.
It could also be the recording might have like latency.
Yeah.
So really, you did 13 seconds instead of 15. Very possible because of latency. That's funny.
Cool.
Yeah, you
That's
never
fine.
stood a chance. You never.
I'll find out. I'll find out when I'm editing whether or not that was actually 15 seconds. I'm gonna put it in right here. So taking a look at the replay and post edit, it was actually 14 seconds. Thanks, Nick. Okay, that would have been the answer, and I was right. Nick screwed me. I'm really doubling down on that. You screwed me again.
More editing for you when you have to go back.
Yeah, when I'm wrong and I have to chop this part out. Yeah.
And that's this part where Nick was right.
Nick was not right. Anyway, all right. Oppenheimer, 3-hour biopic. If you had told me that the 3-hour biopic would have been one of the blockbuster successes of the summer, I would have asked you, were there Transformers in it? Because there's no way traditionally that would ever be the case. But two things, right? Christopher Nolan has that name recognition, right? So he puts butts in theater seats. And then 2, it had the luxury of the Barbenheimer effect, right, with Barbie. Which, that's a whole different thing. We can get into that in a different episode.
And historically, there are similarities between our timeline right now and, about 80 or so years ago when this actually took place. So, that was a time of great crisis, and now we are essentially, from a cyclical standpoint, in a similar time frame. So I wonder if there was some kind of similarity between like how people feel now and how obsessed that the world is with like historical things from World War II, and it's just like all kind of perfectly came together to tell this story right now in this kind of time where many of us feel like we are on the brink of like another nuclear type event, in which case Oppenheimer would have been responsible for that as well, weirdly, because he started the whole thing. It's a completely like mind-bending storyline.
Yeah, so you're saying that this movie kind of works for the time that we're in because it resonates with a lot of the feelings that so many of us have looking at like world news, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of truth to that. You wonder how in the world did we get to this point today, and then you have this movie that says this is how. Yeah. Right. It started with this, and I think you and I talked about it before this show. The atomic bomb, the Trinity test, is certainly not something I know a lot about, nor have I ever been inspired to look up anything about it, which seems absolutely insane when you stop to think about how miraculous and horrifying that something like that exists, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to know more about that? About the death bomb?
I think it's both. It's a little bit of both, right? It's like you would think that you would want to know more about history, maybe in order to prevent it from happening again, but then you also don't want to know too much because in some cases it's so horrifying that you'd rather just not know. So you kind of just go through without really knowing all the details until a movie like this comes out and you're like, oh my goodness, there's some details I wasn't aware of. Now let me go look online and read more about this.
Oh yeah,
pretty wild.
Before we dive into story beats or anything of the actual film, I just want to say I went into this film excited because it was a Nolan film, but also I was legitimately kind of scared. I was scared that I knew obviously we were going to see the Trinity test. I was horrified that we were going to see an actual depiction of Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yeah.
And I felt like that in the hands of even an amateurish director, that's a pretty nightmarish scene. But in the hands of like a director who knows what the hell they're doing, right. I was legitimately scared to witness something like that, and I'm really glad that we didn't. There was one scene where you get kind of a taste of it, right?
Yeah, that was horrifying enough, and like the way that he told that part of the story was so brilliant and just terrifying. That alone, I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. Like, it's like, we weren't alive back then, and the only thing we know is from history. But like, I mean, regardless of what the political and social reasons were for getting involved in some kind of like nuclear war aside, the fact that like this was dropped on innocent people as well is just like so disgusting and terrifying. And then it just makes you think about like the future of it happening again while we're alive, and it's really like, oh my god. I was very emotional and slightly like scared when I walked out of the theater. It was very interesting. It's never happened to me before in a movie. Wild.
I definitely felt that as well. For those curious, just to put some details into it, the scene that we're referencing is Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer, addressing a crowd of scientists, I believe, right? It's the scientists. And he's...
at the end, yep.
Yeah, he's talking about the success of the bomb, and is kind of at first kind of bathing in the clout of it all. And there's this enormous applause that's going on, and he seems to disassociate from the moment. And he looks at one woman, and in the light of a bomb that is irradiating the room, he witnesses her skin falling from her face, and it's disgusting. It's horrifying, and I think you said it greatly, Nick. Like it really kind of makes you appreciate what it is that they're clapping for. This nightmare that they've unleashed.
Right.
Yeah.
And also there was a scene too, I think, where he steps through a body that's been completely burned, and it just like falls to pieces. Yeah, like knots in your stomach,
Yeah.
Like
oh yeah,
because you didn't get footage like that from back then. The digital stuff wasn't as good, right, in the 40s. So
no, they recreated all that.
It's another level of detail, which would make it even more horrifying to happen today, because the amount of detail that would be online would be wild. So anyway, let's get into like some of our, I don't know, I guess favorite parts of the film, right? Like or most interesting parts. For me, like the physicist part is so enthralling, and I didn't realize how many of them were alive at the same time. Some of these important physicists, and you like guys like Einstein, Oppenheimer, you've got Bohr, like Niels Bohr, and all these other guys. It's like, what? I like, who they are if you're into any of this stuff, and unless you've like really deep dived and paid attention to dates, I don't think you completely understand like how much they interacted with each other. And this movie kind of like put that in the light, where it's like, oh, they interact with each other a lot more than I was thinking from the limited knowledge I have about history in that department. And it was like kind of really cool to get that viewpoint.
It is really cool. It reminded me of something that I became aware of, I think like 10 years ago, of the same idea regarding artists, like that, you had F. Scott Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Gertrude Stein, Pablo Picasso, who all lived at the same time and were all like in the same locations at the same time, and probably and did interact with each other. And it's so
Right.
wild to think that these influential people of history, these mythos that we regard them now, right, that they were just people, and they were all just talking to each other at some point or another, right? Like there was a room where they were all
Right.
hanging out, right? And like that's what
Right.
you're describing, right? Like
Yep.
this room where all these brains got to talk and influence the way the world would go, right? Yeah, the movie does a pretty great job of painting that. The people, the spearheaders of the world, were all right there in that era. So for me, like, I mean, there's one part that is my favorite, but I'm gonna wait to talk about it because this is a scene that we have to talk about, whether
Yeah.
it's your favorite or not. Um, but something I really loved was the so Nolan has a habit of he loves quick edits. He loves quick cuts, right?
Hmm.
In all of his films, and in this one, there is in the very beginning we see Oppenheimer is very obsessed with the idea of ripple effects, right? And we keep watching um, puddles in which rain droplets are falling into the water and creating countless ripples, right? And I had I'm sure we all did. When we're looking at that sort of imagery, it's very thought provoking, and your thoughts automatically go to, oh, okay, this is some kind of metaphor for a nuclear chain reaction, because there's a ripple that is involved, right? There's a chain that is happening, right? Um, but only to take that metaphor even further, right? And we watch that from the beginning of the movie, we had ripples of water, right? And then at the very end of the movie, we have these ripples of fire that are covering the planet, right? I think that to me is like my favorite part, right? It's not like a scene where someone's talking, right? It's just the
Right.
imagery. Like I just
Yeah.
loved that connection. Like that was brilliant. A really cool way to bring it home.
Yeah, he had the use of that is was fantastic throughout the film, right? And he's so good at the storytelling part, right? Because you're kind of flipping back and forth between different parts of time throughout the movie. You've got the hearings going on, and you've got his interview going on, like with security clearance interview towards the end of the movie going on, but it's kind of flipping back and forth into like past and present as well during that time frame. So you're getting like all these like different eras of time to tell this cohesive story, and then you've got like the imagery of the ripples kind of just throughout the whole film at different parts of his life, and then all of it kind of culminates at the very end too, which is really cool, and terrifying. So I thought that Cillian Murphy's performance was fantastic. He should be on the nomination list, I would imagine, for Best Actor. I thought Robert Downey Jr. was fantastic. I didn't know the full history of all the parties involved in this whole um, atomic bomb process, and so when I saw Downey Jr. in the previews, I was like, "Oh, cool, he's in the movie," and I didn't realize how important of a role his character played, and so like I was not expecting to see him as often as we did, so that was really cool. Um, some random cameos in this film, like Josh Peck, Josh
That was
Hartnett's
the
in it.
one. That was
Like,
the one. Yesterday when we were talking about this movie, it was
yeah,
Josh Peck. That was the
yeah,
one that threw me through a loop.
comes out of nowhere. Like Hartnett's in it. Like Josh Heartthrob Hartnett's back at it. And Florence Pugh's fantastic. Emily Blunt fantastic. Um, I'm missing the names on some other people right now, but
Yeah, I cannot believe you haven't said Matt Damon yet.
Matt Damon, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a really great cast, and I feel like Nolan brought out like a bunch of extra like kind of surprise appearances than maybe what he normally does in films because there were so many people involved with this, with the making of the atomic bomb before and afterwards, with the trials and all these things that he was like able to kind of like really dig deep into like picking a couple actors and actresses to kind of show up and play parts, which is cool because a lot of his films have a tighter cast, right? Like they have like it's a story that he's sometimes a lot of time created on his own or that he's telling again, but it's a story that has like a limited amount of people that are typically involved, so you don't have like the depth of characters necessarily. And this kind of had like there were so many people involved that he kind of I feel like he really like went into his bag of like actors he could and actresses he could get to play small roles in this, which was really cool.
What did you think of? You brought up Emily Blunt earlier, and I found her performance is great for the record, because she's Emily Blunt and everything she does is awesome. Um,
Facts.
she plays Kitty Oppenheimer, right? Her character is bananas in this
Yeah.
movie, and like truly bananas. Um, I'd have to watch it again to really, I think, solidify my opinion on this. But I think the scene with her that like really like caught me off guard, and I couldn't tell if it was because the writing was good and like that's why it caught me off guard, or was something missing here. Um, it's the scene where she's being interrogated, right, or interviewed, and
Yeah.
it doesn't quite go the way you're expecting it to. Like, um, it might. Am I remembering correctly that she listed herself as a therapist? Is that right? Or is
Oh,
that
I don't
the other
know.
woman? I I think she I think she lists herself as a therapist. Anyway, she kind of comes out guns a blazing on this attorney who's attempting to uh,
What?
help him discredit Oppenheimer, right?
But at first,
Um,
she looks like she's gonna play like the shy, scared wife
right.
for like for like maybe the first like 30 seconds while he's kind of like letting her have it. She really looks like skittish and like she's gonna be easy prey for this attorney. And then she like flips a switch and she just goes like absolutely bonkers on this guy. And I was like, this is awesome. Like turns into like a total power wife, like uh and she fights, right? Because she's been telling Oppenheimer, like, why aren't you fighting? Why aren't you fighting for yourself? Like, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like he's not even answering her during these scenes in the movie. He like looks kind of like defeated or shell shocked or whatever it is. And I think what I got from that was that he knew that he can't fight for himself, that like it's not going to mean as much as if she like turns it on in the room and fights for him. It might mean more to the committee potentially. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for, but that's how I felt when I saw the scene.
why? Yeah, going back to that, why do you think like overall, like even outside of the context of that scene, like why do you think he's not fighting for himself, right? Um, what do you think
Well,
it is?
I think like internally he probably like thinks he deserves it in some ways because what he did was truly horrifying. Like he didn't give the order and he didn't drop the bomb from the plane, but he was the huge part in creating this, you know, or country destroying device that he also knows now will just exponentially become part of more countries' arsenals. So he didn't just destroy the cities, you know, that he knows in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he knows that he will have potentially destroyed other cities in the future that he may not even be alive to see get destroyed. So he's like internally he's like I deserve all of this, like I have no fight in me or whatever.
Mm. I think I think the movie is trying to portray that, right? That he has
Right.
this inner struggle, right? And I think that's best characterized in his like very like strong desire throughout the movie to make sure that Roosevelt's ideas of governing this atomic power are honored with the United Nations, right? Um, he keeps like reinforcing that throughout the entire movie, like over and over and over again.
Right.
And yeah, I would say that's why, right? Because he has this extreme guilt, this profound guilt. I cannot attest to the actual Oppenheimer. I'm sure that this movie romanticizes the character in a lot of ways, but I'm
Right.
talking strictly in the context of this movie.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for. I think, well, it's not always clear, right? Because like he's not saying it, right? I think
Right.
that's
Right.
what you can determine from Killian's performance,
Right.
which
And
again really liked that.
I wonder if it has to do with the book that gave Nolan the idea, right? Because Robert Pattinson,
Uh,
after Tenet, had given him a book of like open.
was it
I
American
think it was like
Prometheus?
no, it was. I think it was like a personal writings of Oppenheimer was the
Ah.
actual book. And if my research was correct, it's not something you can easily buy. It's like very expensive, and I couldn't really find the specific thing. But that led Nolan to then buy, I think, one or two other books on Oppenheimer to read, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where he kind of got this. Then that's what he wrote the script from. I think all of those sources. So I really would love to see what the actual book was that Pattinson gave Nolan, because if it is like a book of writings personally of Oppenheimer, there's got to be some stuff and some context in there that led Nolan to kind of give uh, Killian or Oppenheimer in this movie some like direction from like the attitude and things like that. I don't know. That's like my inkling based on the what I had read. I'm not sure if are you looking it up right now?
I was trying to.
Yeah.
I did not find it.
Because what comes up is like the J. Oppenheimer like autobiography, or their not autobiography, biography, but like that's what Nolan like I think got himself. But what Pattinson actually gives him, I think, is just like a notebook of writings from Oppenheimer,
Yeah, it's
like
a collection of speeches.
speeches. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it's not quite the biography stuff, and it's not American Prometheus either. So, but he did read those and create to help him with the script. But there's got to be some speech stuff in there, or from that book that like he used as like, okay, this is what I think he's maybe feeling when he's saying these things, like or whatever during these speeches potentially. I
Mm.
don't know.
You brought up the large repertoire. Sorry, I got to go back to this. The large repertoire of actors who got to make cameos throughout this movie. There's a big one that you did not mention, or if you did, I missed it because I was waiting for you to say Matt Damon. Um, but we also got Gary Oldman in this movie
Oh my god! I
as
fucking
President
forgot.
Truman.
I totally forgot he was Truman.
I didn't recognize him at all. 100%. Someone had to tell me after the film was over that was Gary Oldman, and like it blew my mind immediately because it was like, A, of course it was Gary Oldman, and B, like, wow, what a great performance from him in just like
Yeah.
one quick scene, right?
I had that spoiled for me before the film, so I knew that was him when I was watching it. But he's such a good chameleon when he's like playing roles. For whatever reason, it's not always so easy to notice that it's him if you don't know going in. Like I think for years I didn't realize he was Sirius Black in Harry Potter. Like I had no idea. And then one day someone told me, and I was just like, oh my god, I just had to flip out. Yeah, that was really good. Oh god, those scenes were so cool. When Oppenheimer's in the room trying to like show remorse or something, and then Truman's like, "You didn't drop the bomb. I gave the order," or whatever, Like, it's like, oh
Yeah,
my God,
nobody
what's
remembers the
going on?
guy who made the bomb.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, what a scene.
yeah,
What a
crazy.
scene. Nolan didn't make a film about you, Truman. That's all I'm saying.
So let's talk about the bomb in the room. Let's talk about Trinity Test. This was the scene that I was referencing earlier. That I feel like you gotta talk about this scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Nolan's like a commitment to not using CGI makes movies better. Like incredible. Like that everything we saw was done live and then with camera
practical
work. Like,
effects. Yeah.
completely unbelievable and terrifying. like totally freaking insane. Um, oh, yeah. Uh, you go. You wanted to say more. I'm just still in shock, I think.
So I mean, this was the big moment of the movie, right? This is what everybody's come to see. Is the big bomb gets dropped, right? And before we even get to that point, I just want to say, like, I don't know how you achieve this. It is the idea of weight. Um, you know, okay, so hear me out. There's a line in Memento that I think about a lot. And he says, no, there are certain things that you never forget. Like, even with my condition, there are certain things that you just always remember. When I pick this up, I know what it's going to feel like. I know how heavy it's going to be. And that's the kind of memory that you can't take away from me. It's built somewhere deep inside of me. I know those things. It's a tactile memory that you can't strip away. Okay. When I saw the bomb, the bomb that they had built,
Right.
somehow I have never held the bomb. I have never touched the bomb. But I know just by looking at the movie, just on how he's filming this bomb, how it's been designed to look on set. I know how fucking heavy it is. I know what it looks like, and somehow I know how scared everyone is when they are working around the bomb delicately. There's this
Yeah.
sense of weight to that, like, to that
Yeah.
scene, that I don't know how you explain to somebody how you do that. How you create something on camera and then tell the audience this is how much something weighs without actually telling you how much it weighs. You know, there's a tactileness to that scene that's so impressive. It looks like this thing looks like the kind of thing where, like, if you just like poked it wrong, it explodes. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it, it truly, like, even before you get to the bomb drop, like, that in and of itself is amazing to me. And then of course you get the build up, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, hell of a build up. As everyone's getting prepared, there's some people who are treating this like, oh, it's going to be a big spectacle, you know, which, like, of course there were people who were treating it like
Right.
that. No, nobody knows.
Right.
um, there are some people who did understand, but not enough, right? You know, you're watching the one guy put on sunblock,
Right.
um, just hilarious and so sad because
Well.
you know that guy probably got cancer. They
Right.
probably all did.
Yeah.
um, you know, as this scene is happening, like, it's so funny to me that, like, you know what's about to happen. You know from history, even if you don't even know history that well, you know what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still like, I'm so nervous watching this scene. The actual
Yeah, because
tension
you're like,
that they build.
well, it's the tension, but then it's your expectations are like this scene's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so awesome, and then the tension is building, and like in the back of your head, you're like, it can't possibly be as awesome as I think it's gonna be, and then it's better somehow, you know. And part of that is just the actors, right? I mean, they've the phenomenal job throughout that whole scene was incredible. Plus, you know, I found out later that the wind that blew, the delay, like, you know, I'm calling it wind, but it's I'm forgetting the actual term.
The shock? I'm not sure.
Shock. You see a
The
shock wave,
shockwave? The
right?
shockwave? Yeah.
The shock wave. Like Nolan apparently had mechanisms in place to have that shock wave go off without telling the actors, and so their reactions were like, you know, in character, not expecting a shock wave. You know, so it's like even more raw, which is like also so much trust in the actors that you've put in that scene to react how they're supposed to and not like turn into, you know, their actual real selves and be
Right.
like, what was that? You know, like they're like freaking out. Um, and because of all the people, you get the different, you know, attitudes of people, right? Like you put 10 people in a room and tell them something, they're all going to react differently, right? You get 40 people on a set or 40 people building a atomic bomb, and then they all get to watch a test thing go off. They're all going to have a different reaction. Some of them are going to just be completely enthralled and cheer. Some of them are going to be terrified because they know the damage that this can unleash later. Some of them are going to just be in complete shock and be silent, you know, and you get like all of that in the scene. It's just like, oh, it's just so well acted and directed. It was impressive.
Yeah. No, it truly was. And I before we talk about the actual explosion, just to come back to the Josh Peck in the room.
Yeah.
So he has a quick appearance before this scene, where like they're in Los Alamos and like I think he like takes a message for Oppenheimer. Like he like grabs a paper and then walks out of the room. I don't even think he even says anything. But like when I saw him, I was like, holy shit, was that Josh Peck? Like, and I doubted it. I was like, no, that couldn't have been Josh Peck. And then we get back to this scene and like the intensity of this scene, and all of a sudden it's Josh Peck and like he's on the button. He's like, okay, you tell
Yeah.
me when.
Yeah.
And like the only thing I could freaking think while I'm watching this is Megan, like the whole time, like like it's like kind of taking me out of the scene. I was like,
Oh
I'm
no.
happy for Josh Peck. I am happy for him, but I wish it was someone else.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's funny.
It the whole time I just kept thinking Megan.
Well, I'm glad then that I knew that he was in the movie as well because it didn't shock me as much.
Ah,
So that's good. There are some perks to having not being able to see it within the first few weeks for things out of my control. So I had a couple things spoiled from a who's in the movie perspective, which to me is not a big deal. And with something like that, that could have also taken me out if I would have seen it without knowing. So I'm glad that I knew going in.
it's one of those
Yeah.
things where you're like, this isn't bad because like he's doing everything he needs to do, and like he's not a bad guy, so it's like yeah, I'm happy for him. But man, this is distracting.
Right.
um, yeah. But that was quickly erased because Trinity test and the
Ugh.
bomb drops, and yeah, like you said, Nick, you get this brilliant light display, and
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing that you see and you just like wonder how in the world do you do this without digital
Yeah.
effects.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Um, did
Totally
you?
incredible. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you this, but I'm going to tell you what my experience of this was. So the light happens, right, and everyone's so entranced with it, and it's so wild. Um, and in my theater, I am sitting there, and I'm like, when does the boom hit them?
Right.
Like
Same.
because like you're
Same.
sitting in silence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was with people who did not expect the boom.
Oh, really?
The boom snuck up on a lot of people in my
Oh,
theater.
so these people
and,
just
like,
have no idea how bombs work in general, then.
No, no, no. It scared either that or they were just like so like entranced with like what they
That
were
is
seeing
such-
and they just forgot. And
That's
it scared
wild to
the
me.
hell out of them. I was sitting next to one person.
We're
who
so
that happened
spoiled
to.
as Americans to have no idea how a bomb operates.
Jeez, yeah, isn't that a
Like,
statement?
how ridiculous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right, continue.
No. Yeah, it just scared the hell
They
out
just
of
didn't know.
them.
They scared the hell of them. Yeah. I was waiting.
Yeah.
I was like you. I was like, okay, the delay. This is gonna be epic. This is gonna be
When's it
epic.
coming?
When is it
When's it
coming?
coming?
When's
When's it coming?
Yeah.
When's it coming?
It was wild. Totally wild.
No. Yeah, best scene in the movie. Okay, but that leads me into my question for you. Because the best scene in the movie, the scene that everyone's waiting for, is the bomb, right? Um, that's not the end of the movie.
Right.
We've got 1/3 of the movie left, and this is what I was talking about as far as people who have critiques about this. And I think this is an interesting thing to bring up because you could make the argument that the climax of the movie is in fact the bomb exploding, right?
Right.
But there's a whole nother section to this movie and the story that it's trying to tell, and that is the social ramifications that come from this, right?
Right.
And we get in another hour regarding the discrediting of Oppenheimer's character, the removal of his not social, sorry,
Security
his
clearance.
security clearance, yes, and then the trials that are going on regarding the aftermath of the actual bomb, right? Now, a lot of people have said that the hour that it takes to tell that story kind of undercuts the climax. It's like, well, like I just saw something really exciting, and now I'm like forced to like listen to these like courtroom dramas, and I'm not nearly as into that as what I just saw.
Right.
Do you agree with that statement? Do you think that that harms the movie in any way?
No, I totally disagree. Like that part of the movie was like in some cases for me, like even better than the first 2/3. Because they talk about it earlier too, right? Like there's a scene, I forget who he's talking to, but I think it's when he's at the very beginning of the movie when he's trying to recruit scientists to come to Los Alamos. One of them like refuses to come, and it's not because he knows that the work they're doing is important. It's because he knows that once they're done, and if it works and they use it, it's the aftermath that they'll come for down the road. At like the scientist that refuses to come, like, calls it out and just goes like, once they've forgotten why you did it, they'll come for you, basically. And I don't know what the wording was, but that's essentially what it was, right? And that's what the last half of the movie is. There's a new regimen that takes over, the world changes, and now the world doesn't need Oppenheimer anymore, and now he's a security risk. And so, like, it's telling a complete story about, like, an insane invention that in many cases ends the major world war, is like the final piece that completely ends war for a while and gets this new paradigm started of life globally. And then eventually they forget the reasons why it had to be done, or why they thought it had to be done, whatever side you're on about that, right? And then now he's a troublemaker, or he's got a problem, and you have to tell that part. And I thought it was incredible how it was done.
I agree with all that. I think I understand why people feel that way, right? Why they feel like, I'm not really into this hour of dialogue, right? I get it. But I think there are two things to remember, and I think you brought on both, but I want to clarify two of them. The first being that this is not the Trinity test movie. This is the Oppenheimer movie, and
Right.
Oppenheimer, as the movie depicts, like is more than just the bomb.
Right.
It's certainly his legacy and is what he's known for. But man had a lot more going on than just that. And his story did not end with the test, right?
Right.
And in some ways, I agree with you. Like I don't think it was more exciting for me than the bomb exploding, but like the courtroom proceedings were really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the nuance of that is really reflective of some of the things that we see today, right?
Right. 100%.
By that same virtue, I think that's the other reason why people tend not to enjoy the last, or not that they didn't enjoy it, but enjoy less the last hour, right? I think I think overall, it is easier to understand the story of the bomb dropping, right? That's a very straightforward, linear story, if you will, right? Whereas the political intrigue of this is really complicated, and
Right.
if you just want to see a bomb go boom, then like, yeah, I
Right.
get it. Like,
Right.
not as interesting. But this is where the true story is, right?
Right.
And
It's the aftermath. The true story is what happens after, and what's going to happen even further than that, which is like where this whole, where it ends with. I don't know if we want to get to the end part, but
I do. But I want to do one more thing before we get to it, because we got to talk about the end, right?
Yeah.
Timelines. Nolan is someone who loves to play with nonlinear storytelling. And I didn't think that was going to be something that happened with this movie. I was pleasantly surprised to see that was happening. I saw a little bit of The Prestige in this movie. I saw a little bit of Memento in this movie. And when I first saw the scattered timeline that we were witnessing, I didn't recognize what it was. I don't know if you did, like that it was, colored was Oppenheimer's story versus like black and white was. Hi, Future Joe here, coming from you at post-production. I'm here to correct something that Past Joe is about to erroneously say, and that's General Leslie Groves. Every time you hear him say General Leslie Groves or Groves, he means Louis Strauss. History wasn't our strong point. Okay, that's all. Leslie Groves' story. I thought at first that, because I didn't quite recognize at first that the Leslie Groves stuff was happening in like when we first got it, it was happening in the future, right?
Right.
Oh no, I did. My bad. Okay, so this was my thought. That everything in color was the past and everything in the future was black and white, and I was like, oh, okay. When they get to the bomb, everything, like the bomb's gonna explode like with color, and like color will fade from the world, and it's gonna be like black and white, because like that's the way the world is after the bomb goes out. It's all black and white. Obviously that was not what it was.
Right.
But that's what I thought was going to happen. So like I think I realized like maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the bomb went off that was not the case. Because I think I saw something in black and white, and I was like, oh wait, that's definitely before the bomb goes off.
You know what's wild is they flip between those two things, like black and white and color, throughout the film, and I did not notice once from a perspective of like it ruining my viewing. Like I at not one point in 3 hours was I like, oh, they just flip back to black and white. Oh, they just flip back to color. I did not. It didn't even the thought didn't occur to me. Like I knew when we were in the present, and I knew when we were in the past, and I knew when we were maybe in the future, right, of the film. Which is again like the brilliance of the filmmaking process and the storytelling process, because
you're saying it was smooth and it didn't confuse you.
It was so smooth. I was not confused. It didn't even come up because of how smooth it was. It's awesome. It's just awesome.
You know, that now that you say that, yeah, I guess I never lost track of where I was in the story. I guess for me, the only reason why it was confusing was because I was trying to anticipate why I was witnessing the nonlinear story, right?
Right.
But like when I actually think about it, yeah, the actual like placement of it was not confusing.
Right.
What'd you think of the use of it though? Like why do you think it was what it was? Like why was Oppenheimer in color? Why was Leslie Groves in black and white?
Well, maybe because at least the way that the film was depicted with Oppenheimer, you kind of knew what you were getting. He was more open and honest about this, where his head was throughout the film, and what his plans were and were not. And Leslie Groves was maybe playing a role and trying to figure out how he could get ahead. And so the way that he was depicted was a little bit more, it's all color because you don't know what's true and what's not. There's more noise, maybe.
Or hang on. Oppenheimer's color. Leslie is black and white.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have no idea what to say. Edit that out. delete.
Did you even watch the movie?
I did, but I told you it floats so well that I wasn't sure like what was black and white. But now that you're saying
like
I'm picturing the jury at the end, or the courtroom at the end, and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that wasn't black and white, so I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there are some scenes where you get both, right? Like like the end you see both in color and in black and white. I don't know. The best of my ability as to like why he decided that, and like I'm gonna ask you favorite Nolan films toward the end of this, but like I think the reason why this one stands out in particular to me is like he took a lot of like, I mean, obviously every movie he does has artistic direction. Every director has artistic direction, but like there was a lot of like artsier decisions in this movie that I don't think I've seen him like. He did the decision for the sake of art rather than just like is this a cool story thing I can do, you know? And to the best of my ability, I don't know what's in his head. I don't know if we'll ever know why he did what he did. But my guess is maybe it's because, you know, Oppenheimer, obviously they have two different ways of seeing the world, right? And the way Oppenheimer sees it is like he sees like it for all of its detail, right? Like he sees like the horrifying beauty of everything, right? Okay. Whereas like maybe Groves, like to him the world is just black and white. Like you're either on his side or you're not. I don't know. That's the best I got.
Yeah, that's probably what I would have said if I had my ducks in a row when I started speaking. So I like that thought process.
I mean, for all I know, there's a much more clear and smarter low-hanging fruit that I totally just missed because I tend to overthink these things. But that's my best guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Um, let's get this chain reaction conversation. Uh, so like the ending obviously ends with the what was said to Einstein at the beginning of the film, right? Like towards the beginning of the film when Groves recruits Oppenheimer to was it teach at Berkeley. Um, he goes outside to meet Einstein and whispers something to him, and Einstein walks by Groves deadpanned and ignores him. And like you get that scene and you wonder like what did he say, and then you get the next two something hours of the movie and you kind of forget that that scene happens. But throughout the film, you get more Einstein references. And at one point, when Oppenheimer and the rest of the scientists realize that there's a near zero chance that unleashing a bomb could start a chain reaction and essentially blow up the world because the atoms just keep pinging off each other and it lights up the air and just engulfs everything. He goes to Einstein um, and asks him what he thinks. And then I forget. I think Einstein says to trust the physicist who did the work on it. I think is what Einstein says. And then they kind of just go with that and decide that the chances are so small that that won't happen. Which then ends up being a really fun scene later with the general, because he like opens
Matt
up
Damon,
to the general.
right?
Matt
Yeah.
Damon, yeah, he's like, no, there was a moment when we thought, we realized there's a near zero chance, uh, it's just like near zero, like, you get the funny like zero would be nice scene, but then, we get this again at the very end when he, when they flash, they give us the opening scene again, like the earlier scene again, but this time we get to hear the conversation between Einstein and Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer is reminding Einstein about the conversation from years previously about, do you remember that when we thought that we could start a chain reaction that would destroy the world? And Einstein says, yes, I do. And Oppenheimer's reply is, I believe we did, basically. And then we get the really cool, cool, but the scene is cool, but terrible. View of the ripples on the map and then the nukes coming through the clouds, and it's multiple rockets, just tons of rockets. And you realize that what they mean is they didn't start a chain reaction at the time with the actual bomb going off and destroying the world in that moment. They started a chain reaction with multiple countries being able to acquire these mass destruction weapons, and the chain reaction is the countries destroying the world, not one bomb destroying the world, basically. And it's an extremely terrifying scene. I hope I did it justice with the explanation, although it was a little wordy.
I think you hit all the fine points.
I'm sorry, I got rolling and I couldn't stop.
I would take one part further, only because
Please.
This is an idea that I've been toying with for a while. The mistake of it being, that there would be an atomic reaction with the molecules and eventually light up the sky, right? And that wasn't correct. That in fact it is a chain reaction of a social magnitude that was what couldn't be accounted for and would eventually
That's
burn
the
everything,
zero
right?
chance, right?
Yeah, I would take this a step further in saying that there is a tendency for people to think of themselves outside of the physical system of things, right? Like we tend to think of like molecules and atoms like being like their own thing, and like we are individual observers of them, right? But I think what this movie says without saying it is like we are part of the chain reaction, right?
Right.
Like we are the molecules that are reacting to those molecules, right? Like it's all one system. There's no separating it. It's just
everything
all
is a ripple
one big
effect.
domino.
One big ripple effect. Everything is a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Well put.
I think you and I, we both talked about how he felt leaving this movie, and it was such an unusual feeling for me.
Yeah.
I'm like actually starting to remember how it felt now. The only way I could describe it was like a beautiful dread. You know, like what I witnessed was like really beautiful, in terms of like the aesthetics that had been captured and the way I felt moved. Um, but I felt scared and
Yeah.
just like full of like dread. Like there was just like, yeah, well, of course we are heading toward that, and there's just nothing that stops it, right?
Yeah, I was just terrified and emotional, and I was like, yeah, we are literally heading towards a nuclear war with multiple countries setting them off, and anything can happen, and this is scary as shit. Like that's how I felt, and I drove home in silence. I cooked dinner in silence, and about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I finally turned on the TV to be like, okay, let me like put something else on so I don't like pass out before I go to sleep. Like it was like I was really
I love that
oh
you
man.
cooked dinner in
Yeah.
silence
Dude,
too.
I
You're
did not,
like, oh
I didn't
man.
even put music on. I didn't even put music on. I was just like in my own head thinking about how terrifying that whole was like while I was cooking dinner. Thankfully, my fiance's out of town. It's just me, just like in my own thoughts. Like the movie was so well done, and the message was so scary and true in some cases. That it's just like, oh my goodness,
You know what?
Nolan does it again.
You know what the last like line and like scene of the movie reminds me of? Did you ever see 127 Hours with James Franco?
I did not. I've never seen that.
It's a pretty good movie. But there's a line. I assume you're familiar with what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who don't know,
If you
James
had seen,
Franco.
if you'd seen every other James Franco movie and then read a description for that movie, you would think it was him doing a comedy.
Right. That's
I mean?
super fair. Yeah.
It's fucking James Franco
Absolutely.
getting his arm like caught and then ripped off. Like, well, I was like,
It even sounds like it could be a comedy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, this is based on a true story of a man who that James Franco depicts, a man who was hiking, I believe in Colorado. I might be wrong about that. But hiking and gets his arm stuck under a rock for 127 hours and then eventually cuts off his own arm. Spoilers if you didn't know, now you know.
Right.
Anyway, so before the big cut, there's this moment of existentialism that he's having. And he's thinking about the rock and how before this rock was like, he creates this whole narrative for the rock. How before the rock was ever here, it was millions upon millions of light years away in space, and it took billions of years for this rock to come here, where it's been waiting for me. It's been waiting for me for centuries, for millennia, to challenge me, to stick me right here and to kill me. And like he talks about how like the rock like, had been like thrown across the universe at him.
Yeah.
And like that's what it reminded me of. It was like that that dreadful chain reaction that you like you don't see that there are things already in motion and that you're part of the motion, right? You can't see it. But you are, right? And I think there's something really wonderful about that idea and really terrifying about it.
100%. Well said.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So,
all right.
Yeah, crazy indeed. That being said, Nick, I really want to ask you, what are your top 3 Christopher Nolan films?
That's not a nice question. I can't pick 3, man. Oh. This is honestly so tough. It's so tough. I'm just going to start naming a couple real quick before I rate them.
Sure.
Prestige, Dunkirk, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Inception, Tenet, but it's not my top 3, but it's really good. Memento, obviously. What am I forgetting?
You didn't say Batman Begins or Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. I think the Dark Knight's my favorite out of the 3. That's why I didn't name those yet. But what are the other ones? I'm missing some others.
You said Inception, right?
Yeah.
Insomnia is another one. I think they're 12 in all. Did you get them all? Let's see. said Tenet. You said Interstellar, The Prestige. Following.
I haven't seen
That's
Following.
that's his first film. I have that
Yeah,
on
I have to
DVD.
watch
We
that.
should watch it sometime.
Nice. Yeah, next time I'm in
yeah.
town, we should. That'd be fun.
Hell yeah. The Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Insomnia, Dunkirk, which I need to see.
Yeah, you
Memento.
Need to see that might be in my top 3, and it's crazy. I need to watch it again. I've only seen it once. It's just the way that he tells the story, like, because you were saying earlier about the linear parts, or how he tells it like non-linearly, and this story is like, I have to watch it again to make sure I'm saying this correctly, but it's like he's like linearly telling it in a non-linear way. That's so confusing.
What do you mean?
It's such a confusing statement. Like,
Interesting.
I have not been drinking, I promise. I know it's more like he's like telling one story, and then you see another story, you see something else happen, and then later, all of a sudden, you're in that part of the story that you saw earlier. Fuck, I can't explain it. It's really good. You gotta watch it. Go watch Dunkirk. Okay, top 3. This one was really good. Oppenheimer was really good. I don't know if I can put it in my top 3 Nolan films. I think I have to, but I don't know if I can, because there are other films I love so much that I've seen so many times. Like The Prestige and Interstellar and Inception and The Dark Knight, I've probably seen 5 to 10 times each. And I love them more every time. I think The Prestige is my favorite Nolan film. And then Interstellar. And I honestly don't know how to pick a third, because it's like interchangeable between like The Dark Knight, Inception, and probably Dunkirk, just purely from the storytelling perspective on Dunkirk. Yeah, that's my answer. It's not a full answer, but I literally will explode, no pun intended, if I pick a third, for sure.
I'm sad that I cannot compare and contrast Dunkirk, especially with it being like in a possible top 3. This will have to be rectified very soon. For me, of the things that I've seen, I can't put an order to it, because like you, there are just some of these things that I like too much. Memento is obviously in there just because like it's monumental in my upbringing as like a storyteller. So yeah, definitely that. I have a hard time choosing between The Dark Knight and Inception, but I'm probably gonna go with Inception, and then probably Oppenheimer.
Nice.
Yeah. Just truly, what a delight this movie was.
I've seen his other ones too much. Interstellar's not in your top 3, huh?
You know, I've only seen Interstellar once. I can't go back there. And it's not
too
because
heartbreaking.
It's too heartbreaking. It's too heartbreaking.
That one scene is so heartbreaking. It's unbelievable.
Because Nick, that scene is what I find most horrifying about life. That is what I find the scariest part about life, and it is
that scene actually does keep me from rewatching it sometimes, because it's so heartbreaking. I'm like, do I want to watch Interstellar? Yes, for all the other parts of the movie except for that scene. It's like so fucking heartbreaking. So I get it, but that's the same reason I can't pick Oppenheimer's, because I've only seen it once so far. Like, I've seen Interstellar and Inception and Dark Knight and Prestige so many times that I know they're my top 3 to 5 favorites. So like, I really have to see Dunkirk again. I really have to watch Oppenheimer a couple more times, maybe, to really like get a full grasp on how it operates. I just love the whole time. The interstellar concept with time and dimensions is just so interesting to me in general, that like it really just like, I might put that movie on when we get done with this. I'm not going to finish it tonight if I do that, but it's so I love that movie so much that I bought it on Google Play before streaming was a big deal. Like I own that movie.
Hell yeah.
Like, which is hilarious. Like, I could just watch it for free probably right now somewhere or whatever. But yeah.
That's probably one reason why Nolan, why I vibe so much with Nolan, is like I have a fascination with time travel, and he seems to have such a very strong fascination with time. For sure. Like,
same.
even if time travel isn't involved in his movies, he's fucking with time in the way he tells his stories, right?
Yeah.
Do
Dude, you gotta watch Dunkirk. Please watch Dunkirk this week.
I will. It'll be my movie this week. I promise.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, final thing. Give me a rating.
Out of 10?
No, 5.
5. We do 5 movies. 5. I will never fucking remember this. We do movies out of 5. Okay, great. I need to put a post-it note on my desk over here. Movies out of 5. Oh man, this is a good question. I really like this movie, Joe. And this is our first official rating of a Nolan film on our podcast, which is also very exciting.
It is.
And this is going to make me want to just like revisit the Nolan films and do episodes on them. Even like just because we love Nolan so much, we should totally do that.
We could do that. We could go on a Nolan binge.
We should do it like during downtimes, right? Like, which we kind of have one right now because I don't know what else is coming out.
So.
And side note, we're not going to talk about this because it's. I don't know if you finished Secret Invasion yet, but we do technically need to do a episode on
a follow-up,
the ending of Secret Invasion.
We sure do.
Which is going to be. Oh my God. Horrendous. You know, I'm so pissed that I gave The Flash all this shit, and then Secret Invasion finishes off with that, and I'm gonna have to like, Anyway, we're not doing this. This is not what this episode is. We're not gonna talk shit about the ending of Secret Invasion. But that's another episode we do have to do. And then once we do that episode, Loki's coming out. But in between, we can do a couple Nolan films. That'd be cool.
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
because I would love to revisit some Nolan stuff anyway.
Yeah, same. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna give my
stalling.
rating 4.65 out of 5.
Nice. 4.65.
It's high up there.
I went a bit higher. I'm going 4.8.
Nice. It's a good score.
Yeah. I think this is the closest that you and I have come to 5. I want to say.
Yeah, I believe so.
We are damn close on this.
Yeah.
And I know we will be hearing talk of this movie again come next year, come February or March, whenever the Oscars are. More than likely, we will be hearing all about Barbenheimer again. Because I'm sure Greta Gerwig is going to be nominated for Best Director, and I'm sure Christopher Nolan will be nominated for Best Director too. So that we will watch those movies duke it out.
I haven't seen Barbie yet, and I know I've heard it was hilarious, but like I can't imagine that from a fucking movie perspective. It's better, you know, like but. To each their own, and what kind of movie you want to watch, I guess, right? If you want to watch a comedy, then it's the best movie ever. So I don't know.
I'll say this in comparing the two. I'm glad I got to see both on the same day. I thought that was a really fun experience. I mean, the story obviously for Oppenheimer is more aggressive and probably more impressive for a storytelling perspective. But if you're comparing filmmakers and vision, Barbie's very good. Nice. There's Greta Gerwig is I'm so excited to see where her career takes her. She's already the most selling director of most selling woman director of all time, right?
Yeah, very awesome, very awesome.
So cool. And her vision for that movie is really fun and just so another director that does not rely on special effects.
Really?
Yes. Honestly, just from a spectacle standpoint, it's worth watching. It's really cool.
I'm definitely going to see it. I'm just waiting for Cena because she wants to really watch that in theaters as well. So I'm going to get to watch Oppenheimer again with her, and then also we have to go see Barbie together. So
hey, you guys should do a delayed Barbenheimer.
We should. That would be cool. Maybe we will. We'll have to find some time. It's Anyway.
All right, y'all. That will do it. I believe next time, as we just established, we're gonna cover Secret Invasion to bring that to a close. But for now, we'll leave you with that. And as always, may the review be with you.
Peace.